Welcome to Tales from the Fandom, a podcast that brings a special guest out of the multiverse and straight to you. And now your host, David Ginsburg.
Hey everybody, welcome to the latest episode of Tales from the Fandom. I am here. It is almost the end of November. I cannot believe it. Black Friday is almost upon us. December is right around the corner. And I am just so glad to have you guys listening to Tales from the Fandom as we get ever closer to hitting 10,000 downloads, which is completely mind-boggling to me that has happened. But here we are, and I have a great show for you today with Briana DeCoster, also known as Utahime Cosplay. We get into a lot of really fun conversations about fandoms and cosplay, and you need to go check out her Instagram page or her Facebook page to see some of the photos that we are talking about. I do have some on our Facebook page and website, so you can follow along. But she does some incredible work, and she's an incredible guest and friend, and I'm really glad that I've had the chance to talk with her. Again, you can follow us on Facebook at Tales from the Fandom. We also started a fan group for just discussions at the Fandom of Tales from the Fandom because I couldn't think of anything more creative or witty like other people do. And if you're interested in supporting the podcast, you can find us at patreon.com/talesfromthefandom, where you get early access to episodes and you get information about what's coming up and maybe some more sneak peeks on other projects that I have in the works. But I hope you enjoy this episode and definitely look forward to the release schedule for December. That should be out in a day or two.
An ancient terror slumbers in its chains. All of Faerun is coiled in scaly peril. The Spellcast D&D podcast brings 5 heroes together to reclaim a long-dormant power. The mantle of the Sentinels awaits. So take up arms and join us as we welcome you to the Spellcast.
And welcome back to another episode of Tales from the Fandom. I am joined by Briana. She's also known as Utahime Cosplay on Instagram and Facebook. She is an actress, model, dancer, and cosplayer in Los Angeles, and she is originally from the Windy City of Chicago. Welcome to the podcast, Briana.
Thank you for having me on. I'm really excited.
It is my pleasure. I'm so thrilled. I remember, and I swear I think it was from your Korra cosplay that I had stumbled across you, and I was like, that Korra cosplay is so amazing that I need to talk to her.
Well, I am so honored that you, from just that picture, you wanted to speak with little old me. Thank you.
It is my pleasure. I know if people haven't seen your pictures, we'll be talking about them when we talk about cosplay and everything. But I just want everyone to know that you do like some incredible work, not only like with the costume itself, but like you have like a range of motion with, I don't know what you use, is it silks or like ribbons, to do like the bending, and that was one of the coolest things that I had seen.
Oh, that was, ironically, with the ribbons, what you saw, the fabrics, they're kind of like like the poi balls. They were actually a friend of mine who I ran into, who's another Korra cosplayer. She uses them, the kind of the fan veil, to try to give that illusion of waterbending. Mm-hmm. And so I've worked with that, because, as you briefly mentioned that I am a dancer, and I actually worked with a, Indian dance company, and they required me to kind of use them for the first time. So I used to practice with them a lot. So when she gave them to me, I was like, oh man, okay, all right, everything's coming back. But it kind of does add an element where now I'm like thinking, maybe I need to get some fan veils because they look awesome when you start kind of like imitating the bending. And, so especially if you have some good wind going on, it really looks cool. So, I wish those were mine. They are not, but they're always fun to play with when, I run into a friend who has them for sure.
Okay, cool. Now, obviously, we just said you cosplay as Korra, so I know that one of your main fandoms is like the Avatar universe, Avatar: Last Airbender, and the Legend of Korra. What are some of the other fandoms that you're into?
I love Gargoyles. I don't know if excuse me, if many people are familiar. It was in the 90s. They first came out, and I'm a huge fan of also to the voiceover actor who plays one of the characters, Goliath. Keith David is like my hero. He's also voiced Dr. Facilier in Princess and the Frog, one of my favorite Disney films. So he, from the early age, you know, he was like one of my favorites, and I kind of like followed his career because I thought he was so cool, and his voice is so unique and strong, you know. But yeah, the storyline for Gargoyles, I think, it was so ahead of its time that people didn't really appreciate just what they had on their hands, and they even had to fight. I know they had to fight for even just being able to air the series when they first came up with the concept. So it was something for me because I love that type of fantasy, slightly, you know, dealing with, you know, like medieval times, kind of King Arthur type, you know, setting. I remember thinking, oh my gosh, this show is amazing. Even as a kid and now growing up and watching it again, it's still the storyline, even as an adult, you still appreciate. And I feel like it paved way for shows like Avatar: The Last Airbender. And that's why even today, like, we can look back on Avatar: The Last Airbender, and because the writing is so good, we appreciate it even as adults. And I feel like that's why the fandom is so big. Gargoyles didn't get that same love, but I do feel like it also, too, for the people who are like me, who did, you know, and still watch it to this day, you know, you see that similarity as far as just the writing that was not, you know, meant to kind of cross over, and it wasn't just a kid show. And I like that. And the animation for both shows is amazing as well.
Definitely. Gargoyles is one of those shows that I grew up with because it was airing, I'm looking at the information here, that it aired from 94 to 97, so I was in high school at that time. And, you know, I guess we'll start with Gargoyles first since we're on it. You know, Gargoyles was coming out at the same time as animated shows like Batman, the animated series.
Oh, yeah.
Where you're having these super dark themes of, you know, it's animated kids show, but the writing and the storytelling and all of the components that are going into it is so incredibly deep that it crosses just from being something geared towards kids to something that's geared towards everybody, like you had said about Gargoyles. You know, it's just incredible across the board.
Yeah, and I think that's why it has that longevity. And it's, you know, it's each week I felt like it dealt with a different topic, but still within the same universe, but it was also too dealing with so many you know, everyday problems that, you know, I guess as an adult, you look back on and you're like, man, yeah, like I've been through this, except maybe not in this fantasy setting, but, you know, it's like this is the real world. But, you know, just different things dealing with relationships and betrayal and, you know, just, you know, falling in love, all these different things. And, you know, I remember as a kid, I think I just enjoyed the acting, and I thought the characters looked cool. But, you know, as I got older, you know, like you said, you really appreciate the fact that they did kind of take it a little bit darker and, you know, deal with, you know, different, you know, situations that, you know, I think even adults, you know, you can still relate to even now, which is so cool. But yeah, I mean, but they were also too, I mean, amazing characters. So, I mean, just their actual, like, physical presence, like you know, the way that the Gargoyles looked physically, you're just like, oh man, that's so cool. I wish that, you know, that actually existed. They're just, like, so cool to look at.
Right. The characters, like, just each gargoyle was so different. Like, none of them looked exactly the same. They all had, like, different features and different, like, personalities, and it's like as if you're watching a show today in Star Trek or Star Wars or a fantasy setting where everyone, like, each character is different, and you get to be able to choose, like, oh, well, I like, Brooklyn, or I like Goliath, or I like,
Lexington.
Yeah.
No, and even with what's interesting is that they dealt with also too kind of creating these villainous characters that sometimes were borderline where, same thing with Avatar, where you kind of saw, I'm going to make a reference to Legend of Korra, but with Zahir, where you kind of understood where he was coming from. And, it was kind of the same thing when you looked at Gargoyles, where you saw where, like, one of my favorite characters on the show is Desdemona. And played by Marina Sirtis, I believe that's how you say her name. But she brought this character to life, and it was interesting because of the fact that you sympathized with the reason why she hated humans so much. Even though she worked with them to try to, like, basically, still, do what she can to, like, foil the plans of all the humans and, destroy them if possible. But you kind of saw where that hatred came from, and it was something that, was kind of related, especially as an adult. You're like, you can relate to why the person would feel that, that way, and you saw that even Goliath, he struggled with, kind of when they would fight, it's kind of like that back and forth where, they used to be in love, but they're not together anymore. But, he sympathizes because, it's dark to say, but yeah, they did kill their children,
right,
before they
exactly.
And that was when I looked back on that, I was like, I don't even remember this when I was looking at the seasons. And I was like, that's horrible. Yeah, of course. Somebody, a woman scorned, she would be like ready. Yeah, we're going to end humanity if possible. Yeah, you see why. A mama bear, in this case, a mama gargoyle. So I just like that, they kind of made it where it was, you saw their side of the story. And they would also, too, kind of focus certain episodes to kind of show the backstory. So you understood that even Xanatos kind of, I like to say like the Iron Man of the gargoyle world. This rich guy who, is kind of arrogant, but, at the same time, he is a family man. And there's like certain things about him that you kind of like, but you still don't like him because he's,
right.
But I mean, of course, Iron Man is way better than Xanatos, and he's a hero. But it's that whole idea of the guy who has his toys and he has his money and he's, trying to, doing some stuff underhanded, but yet you kind of see his backstory and you find him interesting too. So that was pretty cool.
Absolutely, and it's tough to pick like favorite characters on that show because they're all so good, and they get to, as you said, they get to have showcases for each of them. It's not like, okay, it's Goliath and friends. It's everybody. It's like the Gargoyle clan, and you even get adventures with Bronx, like the dog gargoyle.
I know. Oh my gosh, if I can, literally my first dog, I will be naming my dog Bronx. I love Bronx. He's so cute.
And what's funny as I'm thinking about it now is that there's and I'm pretty sure Bronx had like a Bronx specific episode, and I'm like, well, that could be kind of like, Appa's Lost Adventure or whatever, where it focused in Avatar, it's like focused on Appa and like what he went through for a little bit.
So that's why, for me, I think that's why I fell in love when my friends introduced me to Avatar: The Last Airbender. I fell in love with that series because even though it's totally different worlds and time periods and, it deals with, different concepts altogether, there are similarities in the writing styles, even slightly in some of the ways that they kind of did the animation. But, it was still different. But, I definitely saw those parallels. And like you said, with Appa versus, Bronx exploring the city of New York. And, and you kind of go back and you're like, oh man, that's so well done. It's like, because people wonder, they want to know even, when I was making references to Demona and Xanatos, how they did the Fire Nation. And you kind of saw, their, each of the, the kids from the Fire Nation, you saw their backstory as well. So you kind of understand them a little bit more, just the way that they did that. And I think that's why I like both series. because of the fact that they, really went into detail, which is fantastic.
Now, how did you get into Gargoyles? Were you at like the same, frame as far as I was, like saw it, after school and caught it when it started, or did you catch it later?
Yeah, I mean, I was definitely not in high school,
Huh?
but it was something I watched. And I don't know if it came on Saturday mornings or Sunday mornings, but it was one of those shows that when it first came out, I remember I heard I just so happened to turn the channel and then the intro came on and it started with Keith David talking. And then it was like that really dynamic theme song, that they have. And I was just like, oh, I gotta watch this. I just stopped everything. And then my family would always know that I was watching Gargoyles because you wouldn't hear anything. I was just like a radio silence. They would just be like, are you okay? Like, yeah. Are you hungry? No. It's like until that show was done, you didn't hear a word because I was so just engrossed into the story. But it's because it was so good. But yeah, no, I happened to run across them like one of those lineups. And it was just kind of like clockwork. Like anytime it came on, and then they would do the reruns, like sometimes during the week. Always, when I would go to my grandmother's house and they were playing reruns of the show, what was I watching at 10 o'clock at night before bed? I was watching Gargoyles. So it became that kind of just ongoing thing. Later on, I ended up getting the series, and they got the little VHS, recordings, and I was watching it. So it just continued.
Exactly, and I think the one big thing that they did with Gargoyles when it came out was every day for 5 days was a new episode, because it was almost like a movie, but they cut it up into like the 20 or 30 minute segments, because it went from Gargoyles living in Scotland to where they've been moved over, and like the whole plan, and like that's how they snagged you, is like
exactly,
you had to watch to find out what happened, and then by the end of like that first week you're like, okay, I'm pretty much into Gargoyles now.
Yeah, no, exactly. And that, that definitely, if I missed the episode, I was not a happy camper. So I was like, man, because then you totally, and that was one thing it's kind of the same thing with Avatar. If you missed an episode, you missed a chunk of the plot that was key, So you didn't want to miss that because, there weren't many random filler episodes. Most of them, for the most part, had some meat to them. So, it always led into something else, even if it was like a couple episodes down. So, it was definitely, always very disappointing if you had to miss the episode. It was not fun.
Yeah, and back in those times, there's no DVR, there's no anything where you can go back if they don't re-air it or re-show it again. You're out of luck until it either comes out on videotape or maybe someone else happened to record it. I mean, those were hard times back then.
I know. One thing that millennials won't understand, man, we had it rough. No Netflix for us. Like you said, no DVR. I wish that would have been great.
I remember having to set my VCR, and I'd set it like, okay, if the show comes on at 8, I'll set it for 10 minutes ahead and 10 minutes, after the show's supposed to end, just to make sure I get it, correctly, because there could be something that bumps your show and delays your show, and you can't miss it. Like, that's the important thing.
And then you always worried about, taping over something else important. So it was kind of like, you use the same tape, and then you're like, oops, that was, Sister's recital. Oops. Didn't mean to do that. But I needed to see Gargoyles.
Yeah, you had to have one of those, garbage tapes where you just record it over and over and over again.
Yes, exactly. You feel me.
I do. I think back to it because I have my kids now, and in fact, right now, I think they are watching Avatar for, the 6th or 7th time at this point. And I'm like, when that was coming out, because I think it's coming out and there were DVRs, then it's like, okay, I could DVR it, but if you miss it, it's hard to catch back up, because like you said, if there's even if it's not important to what you think in the story, 4, 5, 6 episodes next season, the third season, there might be a tie back, and you're like, oh, that ties back to the episode that I saw.
Mhm. Exactly.
Now, you said, is Demona your favorite as far as gargoyle characters go?
Well, of course, I love Goliath, as I mentioned, because it's also, too, voiced by Keith Davis. So it was just all around, I became a Goliath fan. But if I had to say another character who is, like, equally up there, like, it's like between the two of them, which is funny because they're polar opposites. But Desdemona, I just thought that her storyline was so strong, and the actress did such an amazing job really developing that character. She was definitely someone who, it was, you love to hate her. And I don't often, I'm definitely all for the heroes, I love my Marvel. I love my, like you said, Batman, the animated series. I love my Batman. I was always watching, that was another show, always watching constantly. But yeah, no, it was something about her character. And, it was also too because she was fierce and strong. And really, to be honest with you, she was very loyal to her people. So that made that kind of, but she was an extremist. So it's kind of interesting to see that, like, where Goliath, his viewpoint was so different. They agreed that they both, wanted to be protectors of, obviously because so many of them were killed by the humans, that, really all they had were each other, but yet, they couldn't come together and unite as one because of the fact that, hatred had taken over so much for her. But then you kind of see their backstory of, and then you see their romance and their love, and you almost feel, you're like, it makes you so sad inside because you saw where they were such a great team, and she's such a strong woman, or not woman because technically she's not human, but, female, that, and I love strong female characters. If you like, if anyone looks at my page, you'll see a lot of the characters I portray, when I cosplay are strong female characters. And she definitely is in that boat. It's just that, of course, she's just a bad girl. She's but then sometimes, as any cosplayer will tell you, sometimes it's fun to be a little bad. So, it's great to kind of, because those characters have so much depth. And I think that that's why I made a connection with her, because of the fact that, I see certain things about me because I am so loyal and, to my friends and my family, that if somebody hurts them, it takes a lot for me not to want to retaliate. So I can see, where they were going with that, with developing her character in that way, because I'm like, I would have been, that choice. Yeah, that was smart. And she was so, she was also too very, strategic, and she was so intelligent. She was always kind of like almost one step ahead, where it was really hard, when you saw that they would, have these fights and, these whole long battle, or like trying to figure out what her plan was, her evil plan. She was kind of a couple steps ahead of them every time, because she was also too very intelligent. And, I liked how they did that. It was great. I was like, all right, right when you thought that, they had totally defeated her, she had something else up her sleeve, which is cool.
Exactly. There's, as far as a character like that, especially where you're made to not like her to begin with, but then, you get, as the show goes on, you grow with her and you understand, like, where she's coming from, like you had said earlier. Like, you understand her, like, if it was us, you could totally understand her point of view and where she's coming from. And
exactly.
for probably half of the people that are going to listen to it, half of the people are listening are like, I've never seen Gargoyles and I don't know what you guys are talking about.
Spoiler alert, sorry guys.
but then that other half of the people that know that what we're talking about, they're like, yeah, I could do what she did, or, I would have that same viewpoint, that same opinion.
Exactly. I think that it was interesting too, because you saw where they were kind of playing with some concepts that, deal with things that we're dealing with today. Because if you think about it, because they were, these, life forms that were not like, they weren't human, they were judged based on their appearance. and that can go into different things dealing with diversity in our culture. And I feel like that was kind of, I think that too was also too ahead of the time because, you don't deal with those kind of issues in a cartoon.
Right.
Even though I'm like, this is, to me, the writing was more like that of an anime than a cartoon to me. But, they dealt with those, different things that we're struggling with today as far as acceptance and not judging a book by its cover. And also too being able to, sympathize, with people around us and, wanting to help one another. And, so they dealt, just family loyalty and, how to deal with, a loss or, so it's, to me, I think that they really were smart about the way that they put that in there because, I'm pretty sure that was done on purpose, but I could be wrong. I haven't spoken with the writers yet, even though I would love to see them in person. But I did, growing up, I was like, oh, I see. Oh man, this is, they're dealing with some politics and some other issues going on in the world today. And I'm like, I dig it. And I feel like Avatar also too, they had their moments where they also dealt with some of the same things, which, the topics that are difficult to talk about, but they did it in such a smart way that, you could connect with, or you could kind of read certain subtext into it.
Right. And we'll get to that in just a moment. I do have a last question about Gargoyles.
Definitely.
With Disney now kind of revisiting and rebooting a lot of their cartoons that were probably right about the same time as Gargoyles or a little bit preceding, DuckTales is coming back. They just announced like Darkwing Duck is supposed to be in DuckTales and possibly with a spin-off, and
yes.
they're having some, some of those classic Disney cartoons that again mid to late 90s that I grew up on.
Oh, yeah.
Are making their resurgence. And I was wondering, do you think that we might see a Gargoyles come back in some form or fashion? And if so, if it does come back, would you be into it? Would it depend on how they do it?
Well, I was excited. I heard that, through it was a while ago that there were rumors of a live action, which casting directors, yeah, I might show up at your door. Yeah, pick me. But no, yeah, I heard that they were considering it. I think that it kind of was put on shelved or something. But even if it's not live action and they want to bring back, the only issue is that if they bring back the animated series, it would have to be, as far as to me, the animation, of course, better than the original. But along the same lines, if they just did, something totally different with the animation, I think I would definitely, as the fan that I am, I would be like, what is going on here? But also too, the writing, I would love to have at least some people from the team kind of contributing, even if it was a live action film, kind of helping with the script. Just because I feel like they did such a great job. I would want them to kind of the original crew and even some of, the people, if they, if it was possible, some of the same actors to be used, because it would be just great to, of course you want fresh faces, and of course not, people are older now, but, if that was possible, I would like to see some of the old mixed in with the new, because that's always great. I mean, it's like when you see a movie and you see someone in there from the original series, it just makes your heart so happy, so I think, that would be really cool to kind of see the mesh, that happen, that teamwork to make something new and improved for Gargoyles. But I definitely am open to the idea. I just think that, hopefully they would be smart enough to kind of make, whatever was working for the original, that they don't get too far from the formula, because as we know, with Avatar: The Last Airbender, which we won't go into with that film and what a disaster it was. Sorry, M. Night Shyamalan. But yeah, we would want to make sure that it was done in the right way.
Yeah, that movie has not been talked about. I even did a Avatar special, because one of my previous guests and then myself, we were doing a run through of Avatar and Korra, just watching them for 2 or 3 weeks back to back. And like we were about to broach it. We're like, you know what? We're not going to talk about the movie. It doesn't exist. We're going to talk about Avatar. And so that's where we are now. We're going from Gargoyles to Nickelodeon's Avatar: The Last Airbender, and again, right time, right place for you as far as like getting into the show.
Oh yeah. So actually, no. What was funny was that I did not see Avatar: The Last Airbender because I did not have cable. So I had basically seen it in my adulthood. So literally, when I tell you I saw it a year ago, I started the series a year ago, which is what, it's, everyone was just, their mind was blown. Like, are you kidding me? I'm like, I know, I didn't, when I was growing up, it's like, we had cable and then we moved and then we didn't have cable and I was outdoors anyway, like playing sports and dancing and doing other things. That was one show I missed versus where, before I was watching, actually following the series, at my grandmother's house, and I was watching Gargoyles, just kind of religiously. With this show, it totally, because I didn't watch Nickelodeon, a lot of Nickelodeon. I used to watch the old school stuff like All That, and certain shows. But that was, it was like at a certain point I stopped watching Nickelodeon, and I can't believe I did because I totally missed out. Because I think that there is something about, it's almost like when you're watching Game of Thrones and you're up to date with the episodes and you're like with everybody and you guys are watching it together. I would have loved to have that first, moment of just like, me watching it with some friends and us like, oh my God, did you see what happened? Oh, this epic battle. But unfortunately I had to just kind of, geek out as an adult, which there's nothing wrong with that. And so my friend, I remember my friend was like, oh, you haven't watched this? Because, he was watching the episode. I was like, what's this? This looks cool. He's like, oh my God, we have to watch this from the beginning. You have never seen Avatar: The Last Airbender? I'm like, no, I've only heard about this horrible movie that M. Night Shyamalan failed, but I didn't know this is what it was from. And he's like, dude, we're watching this now. So Jimmy, thank you. Jimmy Page, my friend, he's the one who convinced me to sit down and watch it all the way through, including Korra. So, thank you for that, sir. But yeah, no, I instantly, from the first episode, it was like kind of the same thing. The intro, it's something that about the intro kind of describing the backstory and then going into the music. I am a sucker for that. That's like the best way to start a show for me. Cause I'm like, okay, all right. Long ago. All right. What happened long ago? And yeah, ever since then, I fell in love with the characters. I just, of course, as many people already know, Water Tribe for life. I love my Water Tribe people. So Katara was the first one. Like I fell in love with her character, and then everyone else was so cool. And I loved Appa. Like, I wish I had a water bison. Like, can somebody, like, breed one? I'm like, I want to be like, let's go.
Yeah, Avatar, I think I watched it as it was coming out, but I think we didn't have cable, so I had to rely on other methods to get the episodes. But I remember watching it and then missing some episodes and then catching them and being like, oh, I've missed like a whole bunch, or catching like the first, like the invasion on the Black Sun part 1, but then missing part 2, and it's like, wait a minute, what happened here? What's going on?
Yeah. See, that's the thing that would have bothered me, is that, I wouldn't have had access to it, and, I would have been just like Gargoyles. I had to watch every episode, so I would have been really, really salty. But luckily, because we have our other modern methods, I was able to watch Avatar all the way through, which is amazing.
What was it like after you finished watching Avatar just Avatar? Like, so you watch it and you finish it. What was your experience? Like, what feelings, thoughts, emotions?
Well, I just was like, of course, it was just, what do I do with my life now? It's that moment that we all have, just when we're so dedicated to a show and we fall in love with the characters and the storyline. It's like, wait, no, there's going to be more. Like, there has to be more. And then when I remember, it was hilarious because we ended Avatar, and they're like, no, Briana, it still continues. It's just, Legend of Korra. I'm like, what is that? What are you talking about? Like, it's it's about Aang and Katara and Toph and and Sokka. I'm like, what do you mean? Who's this Korra? And they're like, no, just watch it. Like, they're and they're like, no, I think we think that you'll like it. I mean, she's different from Katara, but just watch it. And so I remember watching the first episode, and I'll be honest, we were talking about being salty. I was very salty. I was like, no, I didn't see any of my people. What's going on? I was actually really upset because I remember I did not, and people will be surprised by this, but the people who know me aren't. I did not like Korra at all. Like, meaning like her character when I think it's because of the fact that it was just so jarring. It was just like, whoa, wait, we just went from this with our lovable characters to this girl who is like so arrogant and annoying. And I remember I was just, it was too much of a shock for my heart. So it took me a second, and then I had to they were like, no, you gotta just ease into Korra, I promise that anger you feel will go away. And it did. Thank goodness I gave it another shot, because then now Korra is one of my favorites. So
that is funny. As someone who watched it way back in the day and waiting, like, are we ever going to get something else? Are we ever going to get something else? And then seeing like the concept art and, it's going to be kind of like Industrial Revolution, steampunk kind of like weird technology. It's like, wow, they progressed that really fast in, 60 or 70, 80 years or whatnot. Then to see Korra, and I have to tell you, and I think I probably mentioned on the Avatar episode, is my wife loved Avatar. She loved the characters and the story and everything. She hated watching Korra. She didn't like Korra at all. She hated Korra's character. There's only a very few episodes that she liked, and they were the ones that generally had Toph in them.
I think that everybody's like, we're Toph. As long as you see Toph, all is well in the world. No, I definitely I did agree with her sentiment. I think, and I remember being so offended because my friend at the time, who introduced me to the series, was like, I feel like you're a lot like Korra, and I said, wait, what? Like, and so I had a serious attitude, but then later on, it was like certain things that I saw about her that I was like, okay, like, all right, like, okay, she's growing on me. And then I kind of saw where he was going with that, as far as just, that strength that, I have. And, I did, I even admit that, recently that some people were like, your presence is intimidating sometimes. And to me, I'm just me, little old me. Like, but it's just because of the fact that I'm just, I'm very outgoing, and, and I guess sometimes some people could think that, right off the bat, if you're not, sure, and, you're also too more of a introverted person than I am, it can come across as like, whoa, like, okay, is this person going to be nice? But, actually, I'm totally not intimidating at all. It seems like that, but because of my energy level. But I kind of saw certain things in Korra later that I was like, found very relatable. And so, I think that it changed. There was a point when it changed for me. And, but originally, like, it took me a while to get through that first season and not be annoyed by her. It did. And then I had to go back and rewatch it. And, I feel like, me rewatching it because of the fact that it was like literally I went from Avatar: The Last Airbender into Korra, which you guys did not, the people who were watching it from the beginning did not have to go, you didn't do it that way. I think it wasn't, going back, I had to go back because of the fact that before, like, as I said, it was just too much of a shock for me. It was such a different world from what we were introduced to, and the characters were like, the contrast, it was crazy. Of course, we did see adult Aang and adult Katara, actually old Katara, Lady Toph, which was, amazing. But, you saw some of the same characters or some flashbacks, which that helped a lot. I'll have to be honest. Like, that is what made me continue watching, because I wanted to see more flashbacks, and then I started liking the characters, where I just came back and watched because of the characters, which was cool.
I had stopped watching Korra probably like after the first season because it is a struggle to watch it like that first time.
Oh yeah.
I just didn't connect with the characters. I could see, okay, you know, Korra is to like Aang. Okay, they're gonna have like the funny guy as Bolin, and serious guy. I guess Katara, the closest one, would be like Mako, kind of like, you know, they had those kind like a little bit of a theme going, but not too much.
Yeah.
But I got back into it because when Nickelodeon took Korra off the air and was like, okay, we're just going to show the last like part of the fourth season on the internet, you know, it started getting like really dramatic. I was like, oh, there's something going on here. And then the news of how Korra ended, I was like, oh damn, I need to go back and watch like this whole series because apparently it got better. And that's what a lot of my friends had said is
For sure.
you just got to make it through that first season or the first like season part of the second season, then it just starts really getting into its groove. And I totally agree. And I love that they were able to explore things that were totally unrelated to things in like Avatar, where, you know, spirits and bending and what is the role of the Avatar and what should you do or what shouldn't you do and how much should you be involved. And like, it was great to explore those themes as opposed to, you know, what we got to see in Avatar.
Yeah. And it was a difference too because you're going from like kids to basically these are like teenagers, adults. You know, it's a totally different thing. You know, everybody's grown up and like, Korra herself is like probably a teen or if not like already like older than 18, like, so it's, you see these more, adult situations, you know, like even with the love triangle with Asami and Mako and, Korra, you see that, and I'm like, you kind of, I guess you sort of saw a little bit of where like Aang was jealous, when Katara was sort of seeming like, talking to Zuko, but it's not exactly the same, so it's like that was, there was more like actual like arguments with Korra, things like that. So, it was, I had to kind of switch my brain and realize, all right, we're this is not going to be the same, and I think that, you had some people who actually, I remember meeting a couple people who were like, Legend of Korra is the best. And, and then I would see my friends and they're having arguments about, no, Avatar Last Airbender. It's like the back and forth. And I remember I was team Avatar The Last Airbender for a while. And I was like, there's no way that, like so far, like I'm watching Korra, but there's no way Korra beats, and really in the end, there's no competition because they deal with different things, but they're both equally great. I mean, they both take place in, it's the same world, just, different time, different avatar. But, it's, I think, depending on what you started with, and some people are hardcore Legend of Korra fans versus, Avatar The Last Airbender, it just depends on, what, you basically made a connection with first. And some people, I think that the people that I was talking with, they were, they didn't start out watching the show as, when they were younger. So I think they instantly made a connection with Korra. Me, I like to say I'm a kid at heart, so I think I just instantly bonded with, Aang and Katara and Sokka and Toph and more, and just that kid in me. But then I saw a lot of my adult self in Korra. So certain things, not everything, but I did see certain things that I'm like, I get that, I totally, that was like a, younger, teenage version, trying to figure out who you are and, finding yourself. And that's something that a lot of people, especially when you're a teenager, struggle with.
Absolutely. Who were some of your favorite characters across the series? Is it Water Tribe for life? Like your Katara?
Yes.
Katara and
Korra.
And Korra for life? For
sure. Like, I think, of course we have, if there's anybody who, from Avatar, who I would say is definitely like my next favorite would be Toph. I mean, Toph was also too. She was a bad little lady, she was, and she had some of the best sarcastic, cause I love dry humor. Some of the best sarcastic lines and I loved it. I was like, man, this little girl, she's like spitting like knowledge and like jokes like Seinfeld humor. I like this. Like, who wrote this character? I like you a lot, you know. But I think I just identified with Katara's, you know, just her motherly, you know, kind of, even at a young age, her motherly spirit, and just you know, her being so strong, and you know, being, you know, like the little leader, kind of like the older one of the group as far as maturity level is concerned. And she was, you know, always very responsible and try to take care of people, and you know, carry on the traditions, you know, of the tribe. And you know, I really respected that, and I think I love that they wrote her character that way. You know, and she was adorable. I mean, you know, I think a lot of people love Katara, you know, so.
Yes, Katara is one of those characters that evolved over time. Of course, you know, Ember Island players definitely brings Katara down to how she acts during the seasons at times.
For sure. And I think one of my favorite episodes is the bloodbending episode. That was amazing, and I love that they brought that into Korra. That because I was like, there's something about the fact that you can bend blood that's so scary. It's such a scary concept, because it's like you have no control of your body. That's insane that somebody could have that ability. And I think that's the scariest thing, is that would be anyone's fear, you know, and and I think just the fact that you know, she was able to defeat the lady, you know, the way that she did, and you know, but at the same time it wasn't like she used that knowledge the way she did, the lady did. She, you know, obviously for evil. But it, you know, it was interesting to kind of see how they went back to that with you know, with Unilock and with Korra, and that I like that, because that kind of made it a little bit more eerie and dark, which was kind of cool to see. I remember thinking, yeah, this is, Unilock is, you know, definitely going to be one of my favorites as far as villainous characters this season, for sure.
For Korra, I asked the question to my guest Trent, who we did the Avatar and Korra special, and I'd asked him who his favorite villain was during the Korra run, and I was just curious, who's your favorite Korra villain?
Definitely. I mean, Unilock was definitely interesting because of the fact that he's a bloodman, but I think, again, I go back to the characters, the villainous characters that you can almost sympathize with, and I mentioned him at the beginning of the podcast, Zahir. And Zahir, he was very intelligent, and he was very wise. Of course, you know, he didn't make the best choices because he was a bad guy, and he went the extremist route, but he reminded me a lot of Demona, in the sense that, you know, he was doing what he thought was justice, and he felt like his actions were justified. And he also, too, you know, just in the quotes that he gave Korra, like even when Korra was like, what happened with you is still affecting me. And, you know, he was like, you know, well, that's why you can't enter the spirit realm. You know, get rid of your earthly, tether. I can't even, what's the word? Like, I can't even.
Tether?
You know what I'm saying. I'm saying it wrong.
Yeah.
Sorry, all my Korra fans. I'm getting too excited. But, you know, just, you know, that whole dialogue, with him and her went so deep that I was like, this guy, you know, I just loved how they wrote his character, and he had some quotes that were up there with Iroh, in my opinion, and I loved it, you know, and not to mention the fact that they did bring back Iroh. I was like so happy. That was like one of my favorite things. But definitely, you know, I felt like he had so much just knowledge that he was kind of, I mean, you know, if you think about his ability, even, he wouldn't have been able to reach that point in his abilities if he really was all bad, I feel. Mm-hmm. So I like that they played with that concept.
Absolutely. He is one of those characters where he's just, it's hard to imagine that he was able to become almost like a master airbender within minutes of getting, the airbending power. And it's just incredible. Not to mention that it's incredible that they're running they're all a group of people where it's like you have all the elements all combined and they're all bad together.
Right. No, exactly.
So.
Yeah, no, I thought that was really well done. And, he had an understanding, and I think that, that did affect Korra because of the fact that she had a lot of stuff weighing her down, where he basically was just telling her that, you can't get past this because you're holding on to too much baggage. And in my head, I know that, in my life, there's been different things that, have weighed on me, and, to finally be able to get rid of that and to, move on to the future. I mean, it's such a load off, and I know how good that feels. And and I know how, if you let the past affect your future, it's over. And I think that he was basically explaining that concept to her. And I thought that was really deep. And of course, I think as kids, people don't, they don't understand any of that. They just see this guy who, seems like, the ultimate bad guy. But as an adult, you're like, man, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. You gotta release, any negativity or, any, bad experiences you had, and, forgive and move on and, with your life. And that's so important.
Absolutely. Now, I wanted to talk to you briefly before we get into cosplay. There's another fandom that you're into that's making a comeback, and I've not seen it yet, and I've been told that I need to watch it, and that is Young Justice.
Yes, I absolutely love that series. I love it so much. Another one that, again, I did not watch. I watched that, later on. Like, I literally watched that, last year as well. I think it's, the fact that kind of similar to the idea of Legend of Korra. It's dealing with these, it's basically our favorite heroes and their younger counterparts. And it's dealing with, not that, everybody already knows, like, the Justice League, and we grew up watching, the Justice League animated series, along with like Superman and Batman animated series. This is a different take on it, which I love, and it focuses on the teenagers who are trying to basically eventually end up like the heroes that they're training under. And I think that it's just such a cool concept of them trying to show that they're not just sidekicks, but that they are heroes. They're future heroes too. And I think that the way that it was done was so smart, and, how they kind of start off pretty much just kind of trying to prove that they can handle big missions too. But it becomes so much more than that, because it's the way that they relate to one another, and it deals with a lot of, teenage angst and romance and different things that we all probably experienced growing up. And, they also too have a lot of humor in it. But I think the way that it's written, it's, I love anything that, basically, where, the storyline, everything connects, and they make references to other episodes. Like, that's why I love Gargoyles, and I love, Avatar and Legend of Korra so much. And I think that they did that so well, with this this series too. And it, I remember, I don't even think, I was huge. They made me get more into DC. I think that I loved like Batman growing up, and so I was a fan of his. But as far as a lot of DC characters, I didn't follow that universe. But it wasn't until Young Justice kind of opened it even more for me, because I was always a Marvel girl, and now I even find myself doing more DC characters now after that. But people know that I do cosplay Artemis, so she's one of my favorites from the show, for sure.
For people that haven't seen it like me, what would you say as a pitch? Like, why should I watch it?
I think, as I was saying, it's a well-written show that totally is I feel like it's, you know, if you expect it to be exactly like the Justice League, like totally get that out of your mind. It's going to be different, but at the same time, they deal with, they like, as far as like what the characters do in the show, it's, you know, kind of their development that you want to see. It's, you know, it's that, you end up from the beginning, you know, you'll have your favorite characters, but that may change as it progresses, and you just kind of, it's almost like you're growing up with them. And I think that that's a cool thing, because all of us can identify with, you know, like how we were when we were a teenager and like us maturing. And it's kind of, you go through that journey with them. And I think that, where with the other superheroes, you already kind of, you see their backstory, but for the most part, you see them in there, like, okay, this is Wonder Woman, this is Batman. But with their younger counterparts, like, you know, Artemis and Kid Flash and Santana and, you know, Miss Martian, you see their beginnings. And I think that there's something special about that, because, you know, I feel like you can really make a connection with the character that way when you see them from small beginnings and see them as they develop, not only as people, but also too as heroes, and the choices that they make. And I think that it's, you know, it's that humanity within the fact that they are like superhumans and they have all these special abilities. It's, you know, you see that side to them, and that realness. And I think that's what I love about the show. And I think it's worth a watch because of the fact that, you know, they touch on so many different things, and you kind of see you see how they relate to one another, and it's just such a fun experience, because I think they almost become like your group. Like when you watch it, you're like, this is like my group of friends, you know. You have those moments where they get on your nerves, but then you love them all the same. And I think that that's what's so cool about it, is you instantly kind of feel like they're a part of, you know, your inner circle or your group of friends. And I think that's why now the fandom, you know, they were requesting the third season, because, you know, by season 2, you're so invested in it that you definitely, I mean, hopefully season 3 is out by the time you start watching it, because you'll definitely want more. They leave you wanting more. It was not done. Like when they ended season 2, I was like, there's so much more. Like they're at the peak. They're not even at like where they could end with this series. They're not even there yet. And that's what's so cool. That's why I'm like, you got to get on this show if you haven't seen it already, people listening. Because you guys will become invested, and you guys will be as hungry for a new season as the fans are right now.
Well, I'm going to have to put it on my list. I mean, I just wrapped up a few different Netflix series, so my schedule is kind of open now before shows start coming back in the fall, and I'm going to have to start watching some new shows, so that can be moved up front.
Definitely put it on the list. I don't think that anyone who I've told to watch it has been disappointed. And now some of those people have even cosplayed as some of the characters because of it. So,
well, speaking of cosplay, as we've mentioned a few times throughout the episode, you are a person who cosplays. You're a cosplayer.
Yes.
How did you get into doing cosplay?
So, I think, I mean, at an early age, I loved dressing up in costumes, and I loved, you know, dancing and acting and performing. And, you know, as I got older and I got into all these different fandoms, you know, like Marvel and, you know, all the, like Gargoyles and the ones that we've already discussed, you know, I lived in Chicago, for most of my life. And, you know, the con scene isn't the same as it is here. There's so many here that it's almost slightly overwhelming sometimes, because I want to go to all of them, but I don't have all the money and the time to do it. But if I could, yes. No, but, I think when I remember seeing footage from San Diego Comic-Con, and I always had wanted to go, because it would seem like that's where the people are. You know, when you see that meme of Ariel, like, I want to be where the people are. You know, I felt that was my life. That meme is literally how I felt all the time around July. I felt that. It was hardcore. And so, I would see these people dressed up, and I'm like, man, I want to rock like an outfit of my favorite character. This is amazing. Like, I love that there's people who are into this, like, I want to be a part of that. And I remember moving here, and my first convention I ever attended was Anime Expo, and I was like, I have the option of just going as, like, regular dress, or I can cosplay. And I was like, I'm gonna go for it. And it's just one of the scariest cons to cosplay at, because of the fact that everyone's cosplay is, like, I mean, so amazing. They put so much time and effort, like a whole year some people put into their costumes. And here I am, no experience cosplaying, but I'm just like, but I just want to do it because I want to be cool. Because that's what I consider cool. The people who are brave enough to put on an outfit or make one themselves and rock it and represent their favorite fandom. And so that was pretty much, long story short, that was pretty much, the beginning. I saw enough people doing it, and I wanted to be a part of that world. And that's me now.
What was your first cosplay?
My first cosplay, technically my first cosplay was Lana Kane, from Archer. So that was my first, but that was, like, also too for Halloween. That was, that was before I went to my first, Anime Expo. So that was kind of like, I consider that a cosplay because I went into it, like, trying to be spot on, and, like, also to, like, walk like Lana, kind of talk like her, have her same attitude. So in my head, even though I wasn't at a convention, I literally went in with that mindset, and it must have worked because everyone was screaming, like, Lana! Just random people on the street. So I'm like, I think I succeeded. And then the next one, I guess my first one at a convention was Shigure Kosaka from Kenichi the Mightiest Disciple. And that was the one that I did at Anime Expo. So that was my first convention, my first out of convention, but, like, technically it was still a cosplay with Lana King.
One of the things I like to ask is, how do you pick your cosplay? Is it based on your love of the character, your love of the actual costume, or is it a mixture of both?
I think that it really has to do with my love for a certain series or fandom, and the character, as we discussed, I love strong female characters, but at the same time, I also too love my Disney, and I even love certain villains. So it's it's something for me. I have to make a connection with the character in some way to want to cosplay, because I feel like the whole point of cosplay for me, and it's not about everybody has their interpretation of what cosplay is, and I just think it's a form of expression, self-expression, as far as just showing your love for a character in a show, or or comic books, or whatever it is. It's bringing the character to life, and the way that you interpret it, but then also to just not only bringing it to life, but just being a part of it. It makes you feel like you're a part of that fandom, really, like you're really representing, and I love that. And so with a lot of my characters, actually, a lot of people find it interesting because they aren't necessarily sometimes the most well-known characters that I have chosen sometimes, but it's they're the characters that I love the most, and I feel like so often are underrated, but they're amazing. And so, and it also too, sometimes because of that, it sparks conversation, and I'm able to kind of talk about why I love a character. And sometimes, like, people literally go and they're like, I haven't checked this out, but, like, even like when I did Kita from Atlantis, people, I honestly haven't seen the movie, but you make me want to like look into it because you look cool. And I'm like, that's like the best thing anybody could tell a cosplayer, is that you inspire them to want to get into it. That is like the ultimate. And so for me, if I can do that, introduce people to, a show, or, the comic book character that they're not familiar with, that's like, my job is done. I just want the nerd community to become larger. We're going to take over the world. That's the goal.
Absolutely. I've been following you for a while because, as I said at the beginning, your Korra is so phenomenal. Not only like is the outfit like you make the perfect Korra, but whoever is doing the photography as far as like with the water bending or even with the fountains, the photo editing is phenomenally amazing. Like the pictures are just beautiful. Like if you see them and you're not sure, like it could be coming from a live action movie or a live action TV series because of how just spot on everything is. And then I have to say, Atlantis is one of those movies that I feel came out at the wrong time, but it's such an underrated movie.
It is.
And I love it. And I wish more people saw it or watched it. And, you know, they do delve into some things that are not your typical Disney movie, but you get these fun characters. Like Kida is this princess who's like is going to sacrifice her life for her people. Yeah. And not only that, like she's a warrior, or like a fighter.
And
like
she's the only one to become queen, which people forget about. She became queen. So it wasn't like she married someone and became a princess. She was already a princess and she became a queen. Like that's crazy that no one even that she isn't even considered one of the princesses formally. Yeah.
And not only that, I was reading something where they were discussing the movie and they were talking about how Milo and Kida met and they started liking each other. But it's not like at the end of the movie they kissed or they got married. No. All they did was hold hands.
Yep.
And they let that relationship, it's not instantaneous. It's not, okay, this is how it is. They were able to develop that relationship into whatever it became. Because I can't remember the second one and if they were married by that point or not in the future, years or whatnot. But just seeing that where it's like, okay, we're not going to rush a relationship. It's going to be a natural thing.
Yeah. No, I totally agree with that. And I think that, that's one that people always forget. Like, they forget about the fact that she was thousands of years old too.
Yep.
It's there's so many different things that it was so cool about just the city of Atlantis and about her as like the ruler. And I mean, freaking, Spock was her dad. Like, I'm like, did people forget Leonard Nimoy? Like, what? That's insane. But I mean, I think all these things kind of go out the window because, everyone has their favorites. I mean, even I know I love like Princess and the Frog, and some people kind of, some people haven't even seen that. And I love the movie because it's, again, another unconventional princess where she was not looking for a man. She was trying to own a restaurant. She was trying to own a business. She was a businesswoman, but at the same time, they were showing that, like, there is an important, part, like, that, is often missing. We all do want to, find love. And, that was something that was like cute that they added in, but technically she didn't necessarily need him to make things happen. And I love that, it was like, she was very focused on her dreams. And I think, that's what I love. I love those type of characters. And that's why I often lean, I'm like, I lean in that direction, more often than not, because I'm like, yeah, people need to know more about these characters. And, if I can, help people kind of develop a curiosity, I'm like, yes. But going back to Korra, it's one of my favorites to do. And I tell people all the time because I did study and train in martial arts, Wushu primarily, which is a Chinese martial art, which actually, one thing I have to say, which I did not mention before, I actually adore the way that they incorporate real martial arts into Korra. They really focus on that, and you can tell by the choreo, like the way that it's the fight choreo in the scenes. And it doesn't matter, what scene we're talking about. If we break it down, these are legit martial arts moves that they're using, and I adore it because of the fact that I train in various styles, and I see, like, I would look and I'm like, oh my god, that's like that's going from this form into this, and like that front snap kick and that, like I can see everything, they're doing, from training, in martial arts, and I respect that. And so, I don't know who was in charge of that for the series, but thank you, because the people who train in martial arts appreciate it. I saw wushu. I saw a little bit of silat. I saw like different various style taekwondo, some of those moves, and each person had the style down, so like each person kind of had their own specialty. Like, if it was taekwondo, or the person who mainly like looked like they were doing wushu moves or whatever else. And I appreciated that. So that's a little side note, because I don't know if you've trained in martial arts before or know anything about that, but they did that so well. And so I always love being able to cosplay Korra, because I get to use a little bit of my training to kind of bring the character to life. And I love doing that, especially kicking. It's my favorite.
Every cosplayer usually has some projects in the works for the future. What's on your plate for the future for like the rest of 2017 or even into 2018?
Oh, wow. Well, I definitely, we just finished, of course, San Diego Comic-Con, and I already kind of, with some of the goals that I had in mind, some of those are already checked off my list, but there's so many more. But yeah, because I had the amazing opportunity to go on the Marvel stage, as Gamora with the whole Guardians of the Galaxy, our crew of, cosplayers, and my friends, and we met Stan Lee, and he came on stage with us and took photos, and that's already like any nerd's dream, especially cosplayer's dream. You're just like, I can say that's definitely off my bucket list, done and done. But no, I really hope to continue to. I love talking with people like you. Like, this has been so fun. Being able to do more podcasts. Hopefully, in the future, I'm hoping to kind of go into doing some panels, and maybe even doing some more live streams, things like that. I love interacting with people and answering questions and helping to inspire others to get into cosplay, or to like not be afraid to kind of explore different fandoms, and or even like just people who could be intimidated by conventions, just kind of letting them know that it's a safe place for them to go, and to get to geek out over their favorite things, and that it's a community that will embrace them, and not judge them, as people often do on the outside, looking in, especially with cosplayers. They're like, who are these weirdos dressing up in tights and capes, But, I would like to continue to kind of become a part of, the nerd community in that way, and hosting and doing more panels and stuff like that. Well, actually, I haven't even done a panel yet, but, I'm already thinking to the future. But yeah, any way I can do that, and it would be great. So I don't have anything locked in stone yet, but hopefully I definitely will end up doing that, and I'm sure that it will happen. Just like I didn't expect to be able to go to Stan Lee's birthday party and be a special guest there, and I didn't expect to be on the Marvel stage this year, but it all happened. So I think everything happens for a reason. So I'm sure everything in due time, which I'm excited about. So to see where this adventure leads.
All right. Well, Briana, where can people find you online after they've listened to this episode and they're digging on your awesomeness? What's the best places for them to find you, either for pictures or for just following you?
Yeah, for sure. You can find me on Instagram and on Facebook as Utahime Cosplay. I'll spell it out for those who have trouble with the spelling. Utahime Cosplay. And all one word. And, on my Twitter as well, I go under my actual name, Briana DeCoster. And so it's spelled BrianaDeCoster. And there you'll see it's, of course, Utahime Cosplay is also connected to my, and my personal and cosplay handles are attached for my Twitter. So you'll see a little bit of, both sides of my life. But so Utahime Cosplay, if you go and check me out, and definitely reach out to me if you have any questions. Please, say hi to me at a con. I'm very friendly. I always like meeting new people. So yes.
Awesome. Well, Briana, it has been so wonderful to get to talk to you. And also, just as a quick note, if you saw a video, everybody floating around on the internet with a Symmetra cosplayer, with the voice actress who does Symmetra for Overwatch, that is you.
Yes. That's me. So you can check it out on DPitty's YouTube channel. I think it's like Symmetra Microwaves, Microwaves People or something. It's under some funny name, but Microwaves People at Anime Expo. Either way, definitely check it out. And I get to dance with the actress a little bit, which it was a lot of fun. So yeah, definitely check it out, guys.
And I'll have links to Briana's Instagram and Facebook and Twitter and that YouTube video for everyone that wants to check it out. But Briana, thank you so much for your time today and just for our conversations back and forth. And your pictures are amazing, and I'm so excited to just see what you come up with next.
Thank you so much. I'm very grateful to have worked with some amazing, talented photographers, and also to, I'm going to give a quick shout out to Ubest Cosplay for working with me over the years, and then also my amazing stylist, Alicia Nicole Hair Design. Check her out. Those people have definitely helped me over the years to make it possible. And, I can't even go through all the list of names of photographers, but you will see them tagged on my page. They all are amazing, and I'm so grateful because, they make my nerd dreams come to life. So, and thank you so much, David. Seriously, you were patient with me. I know I've been running around like crazy, and I'm so grateful to have been able to be on the show. It's a true honor because I totally respected the show, and I think that what you're doing is amazing. And hopefully I get to talk to you again soon.
It was my pleasure. So thank you.
Thank you for listening to Tales from the Fandom. Subscribe to us on iTunes or your podcast app of choice. Follow us on Facebook at www.facebook.com/Tales from the Fandom to see photos, links, leave feedback, and check out upcoming guests. If you'd like to be a guest, email David at talesfromthefandom@gmail.com.